Good morning and welcome to the Standing Committees meeting for Wednesday, June 12, 2024. All council meetings will be live streamed on the city's website, and for guest speakers, please do not turn your microphones off. Our first order of business is roll call. Will the clerk please take the roll?
Mr. Charlin. Ms. Gross. Mr. Mosley.
Here.
Mrs. Cal-Smith. Ms. Warwick.
Here.
Mr. Wilson.
Here.
Ms. Strasburger, Chair.
Here.
5 members present.
Thank you. Our next order of business is public comment. I would like to remind all speakers that the rules of council state that comments are limited to matters of concern, official action, or deliberation, which are or may be before city council. Profanity will not be permitted. Please state your name and neighborhood for the record, and you will have 3 minutes to speak. We do not have any registered speakers, so we will now take comments from those in the audience wishing to speak.
Good morning. My name is Yvonne F. Brown. I thought that someone else. I said they're going to be talking on the TV to the young fella that I was talking to, but I'm not. But it's not so. But I wanted to bring something to your attention that you have here. This is our mayor, Gainey, and they say unfiltered. Well, when he came up to the city to KU Irving, I said, Mayor, we don't have transportation to get to the bottom of the hill to the hospital. And that's when he hollered, Mrs. Brown, that's county transportation department. But you have me where I hollered, yes, but you are the mayor, help us. And at that time, we have a woman that runs the political events up there. And she came and she's pushing the mayor, and he's smiling and she's smiling, and he goes away. Well, I saw him the next day down here at City Council, outside in the hall. And I said to the mayor, and I'll say it again to everybody to understand what I told him. I said, Mayor, when much is given to you, much is expected from you. I said, when I was talking to you and you walked away, oh, Miss Brown, you must understand, she had an agenda. I said, forget her agenda. I am a citizen and asking you questions because we have a problem in that building. We have a woman that beats women with hammers. Now he's downstairs giving a proclamation and a plaque to Saludine's brother, Reggie Howe, who just moved into the building, come from California or wherever, and he's sweeping up in front of August Wilson's house. You know you have your house up there, August Wilson. Okay, I'm saying to him, you up there sweeping up there, what about down here? I said to the mayor, when you came in our building, did you talk to the manager? No, he snuck in and snuck out because there's a lot of elders that are mad to know that he was even in the building and they didn't know it. How is it that he can come to the building and we, the citizens who live there, can't get to talk to him and tell him, come on, Mayor, we're getting beat up in here. Women getting beat by a hammer from a woman that don't live in the building who's threatening me that Miss Brown better keep her mouth shut. No, I'm coming down because I'm fighting for my life and everybody else's. I am afraid for my life, and I believe I am in clear and present danger. Now, her mother lives in the building, and she says, as long as my mother lives here, I'm coming. Her mother lives up on the top floor. I live on the third, and I come out, and she's going into the Freddie Day's apartment. She should not be in the building. And I'm gone. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any further speakers? Any further speakers?
Because I have no statement to make other than my name is Anthony Williams. I've been gone from the city, Pittsburgh, for a long time. I'm an old musician. I just wanted to thank everybody here for holding the city down and for doing a great job. I know you get a lot of complaints. There's a lot of things that need to be fixed. Some things can't be fixed, but your efforts are commendable. Very appreciated by me and the lady there, as angry as she is. I didn't come here to speak. I didn't even know. I know about city council and chamber. I don't want to be a politician. I'm a musician. I'm a professional musician. I came back to Pittsburgh to give a show, a world tour. I'm working on Teenie Harris Foundation for Mr. Lionel Harris, his last surviving son. That's another story. I'm not here to tout that. My thing is that I appreciate all of you. It's a hard job. I wouldn't want your job. I don't want to be the mayor. It's hard enough being me. But I want to thank you, from the officers to the secretaries, Miss Lori, everybody. Thank you. And continue your work. Don't stop. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further speakers? There being no further speakers, we will now move on to our standing committee's agenda. And our first committee is the Finance and Law Committee, chaired by myself.
Bill number 575, resolution providing for ratification and extension by the Council of the City of Pittsburgh of a declaration of disaster emergency for 180 additional days, thereby making the declaration effective until December 8, 2024, in response to the fire at the 2nd Avenue Commons Shelter.
Motion to approve. Discussion.
Second.
With discussion, Councilman Wilson.
Is there? I just want to, Director, if you could come up to the table. Thanks.
Good morning. Jake Pollack, Deputy Mayor of the City of Pittsburgh and Director of the Office of Management and Budget.
Thanks for coming to the table. What would this effectively, how would this help?
Sure. So the fire at the 2nd Avenue Commons Shelter has presently led to the building being condemned. A brief note on that, because there's been some misunderstanding of this in the public. Condemnation does not necessarily, and certainly not in this case, lead to demolition. Right? The building is going to be repaired and reopened. However, this order is necessary to, one, provide additional ability to make quick decisions on the part of the Office of Emergency Management, who's coordinating with the Red Cross and others where needed to address the needs of the 188 or so folks who were displaced by the fire. And then second, allows our planning and permits, licenses and inspections department to, where necessary, waive procedural timelines or fees to expedite the process by which additional emergency temporary shelter locations may need to be set up, or to accelerate the repair work on the building. Right.
Yeah, thanks for your work on this. What would emergency and our emergency individuals, like how would this help them? Are we contracting?
We're not presently doing any of that now. It just keep that option open. I don't expect in this instance the city to incur any significant costs. Sometimes emergency contracting is done as a result of an emergency declaration. In this instance, however, the Allegheny County Department of Human Services is leading on contracting efforts. It's largely a contingency as it relates to EMA, and then, as I said, on the procedural side, with our building construction regulators.
All right, thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to get that flushed out, because we don't own the building and we're not currently giving services to.
That's correct.
To the, the current services that we're given weren't our services, so just curious on where that fits in. Thanks.
Sure.
Any further discussion? Councilwoman Gross.
Thank you. Thanks for being here, Chief Pellick. And you and I talked a few days ago about this, and I first want to kind of say that we're all discouraged to see the fire, and this was our intake facility, really, right? So where this is kind of the first line for people who are needing help. And so it was accommodating people who were staying in the single room occupancy, but also in congregate shelter inside. And just as a reminder, I think there's laundry facilities, there's food facilities, there's mental health assistance, and so it was also servicing kind of day clientele above and beyond its overnight occupancy capacity, right? So
Yes.
there was, just as a reminder, there's some 100, almost 200 people are they still at the convention center?
188 folks were using the building for shelter services the day of the fire. And yes, they're currently being housed at the convention center.
Right. So again, congratulations to everybody for the kind of quick response, and the Red Cross and the county and the city and everyone for getting everyone the emergency accommodations that they have. But as we've been talking about now for 2 years, since the summer of 2022 at this table, congregate shelter is the least best option for people, right? And as we've been seeing for a number of years, because we relied on congregate shelter as our city, all of our emergency homeless funds went to just congregate shelter for years. And I've said, now I really understand that I think we were remiss in doing that. And certainly now that we've seen our homeless population increase, it's really insufficient, because they may not, any given individual may not be actually safer in one of those shelters. They might lose their belongings. They might be physically assaulted. I mean, they're high stress situations, to put it mildly. And so we've been trying to achieve more single room, whatever that means. So the single room occupancies might be a building that's just dedicated to single room occupancy, or other places that we can convert into single room occupancy. And we've been striving to kind of get ahead of that for 2 years. And now here with this closing of Second Avenue Commons, we've lost some 45 single room occupancy, right? And then additional congregate shelter. So how does this emergency declaration also help us accommodate people, or find new accommodations for people? Because they're not going to stay at the convention center for 6 months, right? So
No.
Can you speak to how this might be helpful?
Sure. So the primary objective of this emergency declaration, right, is to contend with the displacement from Second Avenue Commons of the folks who are staying there, to ensure that they're not, going back to the street for lack of an option for shelter, and to restore the ability to service the population that was using Second Avenue Commons. Of course, folks it's not a static situation, right? So some folks are able to use the services there for a period of time and then move on into stable housing they've identified on their own. As you pointed out, there are extensive efforts between the city, DHS, and others to the URA to identify other locations that are suitable for that next step in the process, which is transitional housing. What could be accomplished here is that as we establish temporary shelter options, which will likely be congregate in nature, for the folks who have been displaced, we can then proceed with some of those efforts that have been underway to establish transitional opportunities, move folks into those places, relieve some of the pressure on those temporary shelters, and then be able to accommodate more folks. Really what we need, fire or no fire, is more throughput through the system, and the primary bottleneck is transitional housing. I'm excited to note that there's been significant progress on that front lately in the case of a number of properties, and also that the recently announced 500 and 500 initiative being led by County Executive Innamorato, in which the city is a close partner, aims to address those issues within the next year and change, I guess, 500 days.
Great. I'm really excited to hear that as well. And just as a reminder to the public, if you haven't heard us saying that, when we say transitional housing, we're trying to be consistent in the way we talk about that, because different people use different vocabulary. And I've had some people listening in this week who are concerned that that just means housing only. But transitional housing, when I'm using it, and I think when the administration is using it, means 24-hour wraparound services. So places where people have mental health assistance, they may have addiction assistance, there's staffing. And it's not a place that you just kind of opt into. You're placed there by a social worker. And so it's the appropriate place for you. And typically, the way Housing and Urban Development talks about it, you can stay for about 24 months. But the goal is that you are then moving on to more independent living. I often say, like, people getting their feet under them or getting their life back, right? And so adding that capacity, I've just had some people in the last week kind of say, like, oh no, they're not just going to throw people in houses, because that's often not successful. If people have been housing insecure, they have trauma, they have things that they have, if they might have had before they lost housing, but or might have experienced since they've lost housing, that they need help for in order to kind of be stable in housing eventually. And there are programs in the city already who do that, who have a capacity of only 50 beds, but get 100 people permanently placed into independent housing each year. And so those are the models that we are hoping that this initiative can replicate. And if this emergency declaration helps get any of those things jump-started, because like all housing, these projects like Second Avenue Commons took 3 years from start to finish, right? And we're trying to do it quicker, lighter, and cheaper than $20 million in 3 years, right? So if there's any way that this emergency declaration can also help us expedite that transitional housing, I hope the administration is planning on taking advantage of this emergency declaration for that as well.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Yeah, thank you. That's all I have, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilman Mosley.
Thanks for coming, Chief Pollack. Just a quick question. Is it too early in the process, or is there a general sense of when Second Avenue Commons can come back online?
Those assessments are ongoing this week. As you might expect, last week and over the weekend were spent primarily in addressing the needs of the folks who were displaced. And then, so for example, the Mercy Behavioral Health is the service provider at Second Avenue Commons, but they, their primary objective last week was transitioning those same services to the convention center, right? So a lot of folks' time and attention was tied up with that. We were able to complete through PLI the necessary inspections to determine the building was safe for the contractors to enter the building and begin making repair assessments. So that work is ongoing. Don't have a full timeline yet. The hope is that the building can be made safe for occupancy in phases, working through different floors of the building, so that, for example, the health clinic and the day program might be able to reopen sooner than some of the congregate overnight spaces, which would then be second, and then the SROs, the single room occupancy units, simply because of their placement in the building. They're on the highest floors, closest to the roof, which was damaged, would likely be the last to come online. Mm-hmm. Exactly how long each of those phases will take, though, we should know more about, in a week. We'll know more a week from now than we know today, but we don't have a timeline.
Okay, and I know the congregate, shelters moved to the convention center. Have those social services followed over to?
Yes, they have. Mercy Behavioral Health, again, which is the provider of those services, followed the individuals to the convention center. And again, as we look to identify spaces that can be available as temporary shelter space longer term than the convention center will be available during this interim, they'll follow them there as well.
And my last question is, given the state of declaration, is there anything that the general public can do or stakeholders in the space can do to help support the effort moving forward to alleviate the strain that this situation is putting on the overall housing instability crisis we're facing?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. One, in terms of immediate needs, the American Red Cross is deeply involved in meeting the temporary needs of folks who were displaced. So I would encourage folks who are so inclined to contribute in any way they can to their efforts. In terms of the larger picture, I think we are in immediate need. If anyone out there has a facility that's not being fully occupied, that is large enough to accommodate a large number of people and has working and modern HVAC systems, bathrooms, showers, or somewhere we can place temporary showers, those would be very helpful. We're evaluating a number of facilities that meet those criteria now, some of which have been suggested by council members. So we're very grateful to all of you for that. More long-term, I'll just echo the call made last week in the announcement of the 500 in 500 initiative of anyone with rental property or who's planning to build rental property, landlords, developers, who have an interest in pledging and working with the county, the city, the URA, to make the necessary accommodations to offer those spaces as transitional housing to unstick that log jam that I mentioned earlier. Those needs were always critical, but they're more critical now than ever given this unfortunate event.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councilman Charlin.
Thank you. Thank you for being a director. And I also want to thank Chief Frank for engaging with me on this. I've had more communication administration over this many other times. So want to acknowledge that. Appreciate that. I want to obviously start echoing Councilman Gross's point here that we are all disheartened to see this happen at Second Avenue. And this is, we need more housing options, and that fire took some away. So we are took a lot away. As Councilman Gross said, our first stop on the path to being housed, or just permanently housed. So it is really upsetting to see that. As for this emergency declaration, I have concerns. I know that one of the locations being looked at for temporary housing is in the south side. As soon as I saw this happen, I knew that was going to come. What I worry about the emergency declaration is we are essentially taking away the right of process from constituents that would otherwise get the opportunity to weigh in on something like a zoning change or change of use that would otherwise go through the DM process or the city planning process. And while I understand the need to do that in this very emergency situation, we're also taking away residents opportunities to weigh in on why this is happening. So I've asked, and Chief Frank has agreed that we really need to have a public meeting, although it won't be like a dam where residents get to weigh in. I ask, and I can't require, but I want to require administration in DHS to meet with the residents to explain what is going on there. As we find out, as we learn more about what might be happening, more questions are coming up. Residents obviously have a lot of questions for me. I spent my whole last 3-4 days on the phone trying to talk about what I don't know. So my request from the administration is that there needs to be, if not a public hearing, well, I guess a public hearing, not that the public gets to weigh in, but the public needs to be able to express themselves, express their concerns to the administration. It needs to be moved to the south side. Director Muller, can you agree to that?
Thanks, Councilman. I apologize. It was not always easy to hear you, but I believe the question was, would the administration agree to meeting with residents in the vicinity of the church facility in the south side that you're correct is under consideration to serve as one of the emergency shelters? The answer to that is absolutely. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe that conversation is, or at least was, scheduled for tomorrow evening. And I would further add that, it's our commitment to the greatest extent possible to hold similar conversations like that one in any area of the city where this may occur. The waiver of standard procedures that would be accomplished by the emergency declaration is necessary for the process to move with the speed necessary to meet the need, but we are nonetheless committed, perhaps by different means than we normally would, to sharing all the relevant information with the public and hearing their perspectives.
Yeah, and so we're not going forward with a public meeting tomorrow because the Red Cross has yet to evaluate the site in the south side yet. There's too many moving parts to actually have a valid conversation at this point. But again, I have to mention again that the south side does not have the services that the rest of the city has in terms of co-response or the route team or any of the other programs we provide in other locations. And yet, we know we're going to be asked to to carry a lunch of this load from what's happening here. I would never want to see folks not be able to, or have to backslide on their pathway to permanent, because we didn't like them. That's outside. Same time, it is frustrating that while we are carrying critical load, we're still not receiving the services that other areas of the city are receiving. That continues to be, a concern for all the neighbors. But I have had more calls about homelessness this year than I have previous years before the shelter caught fire. And we're still, we're thankful for the work the community recovery has been able to do. They have been an excellent partner, but they're not receiving any city funding, any city anything. So, we're still operating for deficit here. But my final point is, just want to, thank Chief Frank for engaging me, and I appreciate that. Ultimately, we don't want to see this happen. We don't want to see more people on the street. And frankly, I know, representing the South Side, living in the South Side, that as we don't offer folks somewhere to come to the South Side anyway. And as the street shelves closed and we asked people where they were going, so if we become 180 people becoming the South Side, we'll still have a lot of services to provide them. So I'm frustrated with the entire situation, as anyone can tell, but ultimately I don't know what else. Thank you, Dr. That's all my questions.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I'll just ask, I know from media reports and maybe some conversations, the approximate kind of cause of the fire, the rooftop unit. Is there going to be any more detailed report that we'll have access to, mostly just to ensure that whatever, after renovations are complete, whatever was the cause will be abated for next time?
Yes. So the Bureau of Fire has conducted an investigation and are fairly confident that they are aware of the cause of the fire. I believe that any formal reporting on that is still being assembled, and I don't want to speak out of turn about that investigation, but you can rest assured that it was fully investigated, and they're confident they know what caused it, and that will inform renovations and be available at some point in the future.
At some point in the future.
Yep.
Okay, very good. Thank you. With that, all those in favor of Bill 575, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Affirmative recommendation. Thank you. Bill 89.
Bill 89, deferred paper, resolution amending Resolution 909 of 2023, entitled Resolution Authorizing a Fee Schedule for 2024 pursuant to Chapter 170 of the City Code to reduce the cost of employee parking.
Motion to hold for 1 week.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of a 1 week hold, please indicate by saying aye.
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 We will hold for 1 week. Bill 559.
Bill 559, resolution authorizing the issuance of a warrant in favor of Henry Greeley and Dina Farrell in an amount not to exceed $2,835 over 1 year in full and final settlement of a claim for damage to their property from a failed city right-of-way tree on December 3rd, 2023, excuse me.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Bill 559, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Affirmative recommendation. Bill 563.
Bill 563, resolution authorizing the mayor and the director of Office of Management and Budget to establish a use plan and a fund for festivals which were in existence prior to or during the COVID pandemic and were also impacted financially by the COVID pandemic as allocated in the city's American Rescue Plan.
The bill sponsor indicated to me that she wishes for a 1 week hold.
Motion to hold 1 week.
Second.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of a 1 week hold, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
563 is held for 1 week. Bill 566.
Bill 566, resolution authorizing and directing the city controller pursuant to 404C of the Pittsburgh Home Rule Charter to conduct a performance audit of purchasing and contracting opportunities made available to minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, and LGBT-owned businesses as defined in Chapter 177A of the Pittsburgh Code of Ordinances.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We do have an amendment before us. So motion to approve. We have a second.
Second.
Okay, discussion. All right.
Discussion.
Would someone like to offer the amendment?
Yeah, motion to amend.
Motion to
Second.
amend. We have a second. Discussion on the amendment.
Could
Seeing-
someone talk that? Oh, this is Councilman Lavelle's
Correct.
thing, and these are just fairly minor amendments that we have in front of us. Okay, thank you.
The amendments do look technical in nature.
Yeah.
All right, seeing no other discussion, all those in favor of amending Bill 566, please indicate by saying aye.
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 I apologize. I do it.
Apologies.
Sorry.
Absolutely.
Just real briefly here, when I offered the previous bill for the controller's office to audit it, or to look at our enforcement practices, I was told that we can't have a motion to direct the controller, but I see that we're doing it now, so I would just like some clarification on that. Happy to support today, but I think as I was kind of, my hand was slapped for that. I'm curious if that's something we're allowed to do or if that is different. If anyone knows, that would be helpful.
Thank you. I mean, unless we have someone who can come to the table immediately, I would recommend that we investigate and, if necessary, make a voice vote at the table next Tuesday, striking the two words "and directing," so it would be authorizing but not directing. Unless we have someone.
That's fine with me.
Okay. Okay. So amendment is approved. We will move on to the bill as amended, Bill 566. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of Bill 566 as amended, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Affirmative recommendation. Thank you. That moves us on to invoices. Do we have a motion on invoices?
Motion to approve discussion.
We have a second.
Second.
Second with discussion, Councilman Wilson?
Yeah, I don't see anyone in the audience that could help other than our budget director. Could you come to the table?
Good morning, Peter McDevitt, City Council Budget Director.
Thanks for coming. I just had a question about these the EMS costs here. Are these, do you know what these are related to? These related to events?
Are those more than likely, yes.
Yeah, like Ford City.
Oh, yeah. So those are whenever we have there are events that we have, whether it's like a pirate game or a concert. We're required to have additional EMS staffing. We don't have enough staff, so what happens is if it's like a pirate game and we need additional EMS, the pirates will pay us, and it'll go into the secondary employment trust fund. I think it's secondary employment trust fund, or maybe it's the EMS reimbursable trust fund. Anyways, they'll pay us, and then we will pay those other Ford City House, Hose Company, One Ambulance, Monroeville Fire.
Are we paying the same rate that we would if it was in-house?
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, while I'm up here, I would encourage you to waive the rules this week, and it's not obvious to you why, but there are actually 2 invoices on the list that are partial payments that you've already approved previously. One is under police for Vonderhaus Guild German Shepherds Inc. Back in April, there was a P card payment for a partial payment of a police canine. That was for $3,605. So the invoice today for $4,500 would make that single payment over the $5,000 councilmanic threshold. There's also a partial payment under the city controller's office for Zeo Technologies. For hosting the open book website that the controller's office has. We noticed this came up a couple of times over the past month, and we took a closer look at the invoice, and the total of the invoice is actually $17,000. So they were splitting the invoice into multiple payments. So I believe this is the last time it will come across council, but because the individual invoice itself is over the $5,000.
Where's that at?
Under city controller's office.
I don't see that under city controller. Controller's office just has Zeo Technologies.
Yeah.
Oh, open book. Oh, it says
Yeah.
open book. Okay. I'll
So-
search for open book. So you said the total adds up to 17,000?
Yeah. For one invoice. So they had been splitting it over a couple of weeks, which is something that we frown upon. And I've already spoken to them.
What did they say?
There's a lot of turnover in the controller's office, so they were just trying to get the invoices paid as best as possible. I actually do have a meeting with them tomorrow to go over appropriate ways to present these to council so that they're within the rules of council to get them paid as quickly as possible and within the rules.
I understood the open book was being used throughout the whole city previously. Is that not the case here? It's just...
No, it's a controller's office function.
Just a controller's office.
Yeah. It's a great resource, though.
So they're going to devise a plan to...
Yeah, this should have been paid via a resolution to pay via warrant instead of splitting it. It obviously, or not obviously, but it honestly would have been paid quicker if they would have done it that way. But like I said, there's been a lot of turnover down there, so we've been working with them to make sure that they are doing everything within the rules of council.
Yeah. The audit themselves.
Yeah.
All right. So I wasn't... So I can make that motion, but I wanted to continue on about the payments here to EMS. So how do we know whether it's for event or
it would be
services?
In the actual invoice itself that we receive. We kind of put,
like, it'll say PNC Park.
yeah, of
Is there ever a time
actual
whenever
events.
it comes in and it's not?
No, not
from an
for
event?
these reimbursement for EMS coverage. Yeah, we don't. I mean, it's literally only for some kind of special event, whether it's a concert or a Penguin game or a Pirate game.
Okay. All right. I'll make a motion to waive the rules on the invoices.
We have a second?
Second.
All those in favor of waiving the rules of council for the 2 purchases that exceed $5,000, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
We've waived the rules. All those in favor of invoices, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Invoices are approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That moves us on to P cards. Do we have a motion to approve P cards?
So moved.
Second.
So for P cards this week, there are no P cards that are over $5,000, nor are there any PayPal transactions. Any discussion on P cards? Seeing none, all those in favor of P cards, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
No.
P cards are approved. That moves us on to Public Works and Infrastructure Committee, chaired by Councilperson Warwick.
Bill number 560, resolution amending Resolution 61 of 2024, which provided for an amended reimbursement agreement or agreements with the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation for the Charles Anderson Bridge project, providing for the payment of the costs thereof not to exceed $59,890,000 for costs associated with the construction phase of the project, due to this phase being 100% federally funded. This resolution serves to authorize only the amended reimbursement agreement or agreements at a cost not to exceed $7,100, an increase of $850 from the previously executed agreement for costs associated with the preliminary engineering and final design phases of the project. Future resolutions will authorize the project-specific service agreements.
Motion to approve. Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Bill 560, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Affirmative recommendation. That moves us on to Land Use and Economic Development Committee, chaired by Councilman Wilson.
Bill 461, resolution authorizing and directing the Director of the Department of City Planning to take such actions as are necessary to realign the official boundaries of the Central Business District in Crawford Roberts neighborhood so as to cause them to be coextensive with the current boundaries of Census Tracts 201 and 305 in the city of Pittsburgh, Allegheny County.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Bill 461, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Affirmative recommendation. Bill 561.
Bill 561, resolution authorizing the mayor and the Director of City Planning to enter into a professional services agreement and/or contract with Replace Urban Studio to support planning efforts to stabilize and preserve abandoned structures in the Hill District with a cost not to exceed $49,680.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Bill 561, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Affirmative recommendation. That moves us on to Innovation, Performance, Asset Management, and Technology Committee, chaired by Councilwoman Gross.
Bill 549, resolution authorizing the mayor and the Director of the Department of Innovation and Performance on behalf of the city of Pittsburgh to enter into an agreement or agreements or amendments thereto with Social Pinpoint for Engage PGH online engagement platform subscription with enhanced translation at a cost not to exceed $114,300 over 5 years.
Motion to approve. Brief discussion.
Second.
Brief discussion, Councilwoman Gross.
Thank you, I appreciate it. May I call the director up to the table? I know there was an email exchange a week ago or so, and it was this was introduced as a new paper about why are we spending $20,000 a year for the next 5 years to keep our entire Engage system, which is right now our public portal for information about city projects. So why are we spending $20,000 a year to keep it up, and how might it change in the future? So I'll let the director introduce herself. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Heidi Norman, Director of the Department of Innovation and Performance. Thank you for considering this legislation. Social Pinpoint, formerly known as Harvest Digital Planning, is the platform upon which Engage PGH is built. It was obtained and administered and budgeted by the Department of City Planning for several years. This year, in 2024, INP received it in our budget, and unfortunately, it was already out of contract when we received it in January. So we negotiated with Social Pinpoint to hold their budget steady if we could do a renewal of services. The reason why that was important is because we were only budgeted for the approximately $23,000 that it cost to pay for this platform. We did go out and look at other systems that could possibly underwrite Engage PGH. Unfortunately, the lowest cost system that we could find, which did not provide the same amount of services that the current platform does, cost twice as much, and the prices went up from there. So in an effort to continue to be able to use Engage PGH, and in a negotiated agreement with Social Pinpoint, we asked for permission to be able to renew the current agreement at the current prices for the next 5 years. That will allow the approximately 70,000 constituents who use this service to be able to continue to use the service with their current login and information, while my department and the mayor's office and others begin to look at what other system could we use in the future, and whether that's through an RFP or potentially utilizing another system that we already own and developing that capability in-house. That was agreeable to the entire committee. One thing to note is the reason that this extension we're looking at it for so long is one of the issues with the Social Pinpoint platform originally is that we are not able to get access to or transfer any of the data or accounts from this system to another system. That all has to be done manually. And it will take us up to a year of manual data entry, not only to move over all those accounts, but to move over all of the historical information and data that we have in there from the many, many different Engage PGH projects and programs that we have been using over the last few years. So it's incredibly important that we remain stable with Engage PGH, and that when we do go to replace it, that we're really thoughtful and have a long lead time to be able to do so that it's seamless to the public when it happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. And again, I always am impressed and want to give you credit for guiding us through how these very, very many different contracts that have kind of just grown and multiplied over the years, that I've been here, when we've gone from kind of paper systems to online systems or to software, and then from like kind of owned software to cloud-based services. So it's one of the things I want to emphasize in what you said was that the initial contract didn't protect our ownership of our data. I'm not sure I'm saying that exactly right, but that we weren't able to access and like keep our data as the contract ended. And so it's only a manual process that you're relying on.
Right. It was so when the original RFP went out several years back, the Department of City Planning was the one that actually purchased the platform, and one of the issues that my team saw, because we participated in that, and one of the issues that we saw was this lack of access to our data and lack of ability to download it, to transfer it, any of those types of things. We considered that a very serious issue, but ultimately the decision was by that committee that made the choice was to move forward with this system anyway. And now, unfortunately, we are going to have to deal with that decision.
So
it's
a topic for another day, really. But that, and we've touched upon it over the years, I think, here and there, that, you know, we're also have an onus to protect, we're calling it our data, but it's our citizens' data, right? And so I know that your team has briefed me and other chairs before about how you've also put together kind of internet security team. But this idea of, you know, creating content that you're paying a subscription service for, and that being able to take it with you, so to speak, I'm glad that you and your team are making progress in working through, again, the various departments and the various software packages that we have or online services that we have now. And so I appreciate that. But it's part of what keeps us functioning on a daily basis. So again, if we ended this contract right now, we would literally lose all of the information that citizens have shared with us about the very, very many projects, capital projects especially, across the city. So that you're working through how we carry that with us, it'd be like erasing all of the 311 calls, right? And so you can't look back and see them. So that you're figuring out a way that we can extend this for very affordable, cheaper than any other respondent. So it's by less than half, by half as much lower than any of the new bids you got.
Correct.
Even though it's not the ideal platform for the long run, we'll renew it for this $20,000 a year, which again, the cheapest bid came in at $40,000 a year, renewing this one at $20,000 a year, but figuring out a way to transition to a better vendor that will, or internal, I love that you are also building up the capacity in-house that we can manage some of this data ourselves.
Yes, we are both looking externally and internally and considering what the best option would be. I would add, to the concern for the future about this type of thing today, in our procurement process, it would be unacceptable, and we would not actually be able to sign a contract with an organization that did not give us access to our own data.
Good to know.
So that has been changed.
So we won't do that anymore.
I would like us never to do that again. Yes, that's correct.
That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Oh, Councilwoman Warwick, thank you.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to very quickly say how great I think the Engage pages are. They're incredibly useful for whether it's traffic calming projects or playground projects or whatever it is that the city's doing, just for our office, whether it's communicating those things out and linking people to the place that they can go. They're laid out so simply and so clearly, to just, when calls come in and people have comments about whatever it is, you can say, great, please put it in here, and it consolidates everything in one place.
Yeah, it's just been tremendous
Yeah,
for the
I
city
really
to be
can't
able to
say
work with
enough
our
about those
citizens and
pages.
communicate in that way.
Yeah.
So the Engage PGH platform we are behind it 100%, and we will also be looking to replace the underlying platform that creates it.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Thank you. Any further comments? I know that we will be, well, first of all, I'll echo what's already been said. Also value the Engage pages. Before that, I think our office just had to create email response templates for every single person who would have a comment about something, and then we'd have to email them the, edited version of a long email response to explain the whole project. And so to be able to point to a project page is invaluable, saves us time as well, and it helps the public. But I know that for future technology projects, we're looking at potentially a longer lead up for all technology contracts that we might be reassessing or entering into to give your team the time to do the groundwork that's necessary before even entering into deciding to enter into a contract. Do you think that'll generally be a 5-year lead up time frame?
Yeah, so if I understand what you're talking about correctly, it's the need to go to RFP on a regular basis, competing with how long the life cycle is for a software platform. So I will say that for the standard for enterprise software platforms, and for those we're talking about the platforms that multiple departments use that are really relatively large, the life cycle for that is 15 years. The implementation for one of those systems is 3 years. So for us to go to RFP for Microsoft 365 every 3 years would be an enormous hardship, because by the time we got done with the implementation, we would be looking to do an RFP. So that's where we may want to discuss what makes sense in terms of requirements for looking at other systems and looking at a competitive model for acquisition. So I would really appreciate engaging in that dialogue.
Okay. And then just specifically on this one is, I mean, we're going to be potentially using Engage more in the next couple of years as we start engaging the public around the comprehensive plan more than we have even, in the preceding 2 years. So we're expecting then to use Engage.
Yes.
And then so add that content and add to the content that then will have to be manually moved over to
That's
whatever.
correct.
Okay.
That's
okay.
correct.
So it's the only option.
It's the only option that
Okay.
we have, and I believe based on the amount of work that it's going to take to move over, and of course we want it to be absolutely as seamless as possible, it's wise for us to consider very carefully how, not only which organization will be providing the platform, whether that's internal or external, but then in addition to that, the timing, and in order to make that as seamless as possible, it just takes much more care and consideration. When you're talking about 70,000 people in our community, and hopefully more
yeah.
in a couple of years we'll be using it, when you're talking about potentially 100,000 people and they all have to get used to something that looks and feels and acts differently, that's a change management campaign that's going to happen, and we want to make sure that we make it as simple as possible for our residents so that it's not a hardship for any of them.
Absolutely. All right. All those in favor of Bill 549, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Affirmative recommendation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director.
That moves us on to Intergovernmental and Educational Affairs Committee chaired by Councilman Mosley.
Bill 550, excuse me, resolution adopting plan revision to the City of Pittsburgh's official sewage facilities plan for 316 South Highland at no cost to the city.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Bill 550, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Affirmative recommendation. Bill 551.
Bill 551, resolution adopting plan revision to the City of Pittsburgh's official sewage facilities plan for 50 26th Street at no cost to the city.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Bill 551, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Affirmative recommendation. Bill 553.
Bill 553, resolution authorizing an amended cooperation agreement or agreements with the Urban Redevelopment Authority of Pittsburgh for the performance of certain work in connection with the Penn Circle two-way conversion, providing for the payment of the cost not to exceed $1,100,000, an increase of $100,000, and by extending the term through the end of 2024.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Bill 553, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Affirmative recommendation. Bill 554.
Bill 554, resolution approving execution of a contract for disposition by sale of land between the URA of Pittsburgh and Pittsburgh Housing Development Corporation for the sale of Block 27B, Lot 166, in the 5th Ward of the City of Pittsburgh, 748 Anaheim Street, Council District 6, at no cost to the city.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Bill 554, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Affirmative recommendation. Bill 555.
Bill 555, resolution approving execution of a contract for disposition by sale of land between the URA of Pittsburgh and Studio Volley LLC or a related entity for the sale of Block 10P, lots 127 and 128, and Block 10R, lots 159 and 162, in the 5th Ward of the City of Pittsburgh, 2239 Center Avenue, and adjoining parcels to the east and west, Council District Number 6, at no cost to the city.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Bill 555, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Affirmative recommendation. Bill 556.
Bill 556, resolution authorizing the mayor and the director of the Department of Finance on behalf of the City of Pittsburgh to enter into a permanent easement agreement with the URA of Pittsburgh for the existing trail over a portion of Block 24S, Lot 80, in the 2nd Ward of the City of Pittsburgh, along the Allegheny River between 21st Street and 23rd Street, Council District 1, to preserve this section of the Three Rivers Heritage Trail as an accessible public amenity in perpetuity at no cost to the city.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Bill 556, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Affirmative recommendation, Bill 557.
Bill 557, resolution authorizing the Pittsburgh Land Bank to acquire all the city's right, title, and interest, if any, in and to the publicly owned properties in the 24th Ward of the City of Pittsburgh, designated in the Deed Registry Office of Allegheny County as Block 24C, lots 133, 165, 167, and 192, 1266 High Street, 1221 High Street, 0 Spring Garden Avenue, and 1257 High Street, Council District Number 1, no cost to the city.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Bill 557, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Affirmative recommendation, Bill 558.
Can I just ask how many lots that was? That last bill?
Like
Four.
4, okay.
Bill 558, resolution authorizing the Pittsburgh Land Bank to acquire all the city's right, title, and interest, if any, in and to the publicly owned properties in the 30th Ward of the City of Pittsburgh, designated in the Deed Registry Office of Allegheny County as Block 33F, Lot 149, 406 Suncrest Street, Council District Number 3, at no cost to the city.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Bill 558, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Affirmative recommendation. Having exhausted the agenda of the Standing Committee's meeting, that moves us on to meeting announcements. This afternoon at 1:30 p.m., Council will hold a cablecast public hearing on Bill 2023-2330 relative to zoning map amendments on McKee Place in the Central Oakland neighborhood, 4th Ward. Speaker registration will close today at noon. Due to the Juneteenth holiday, Council will hold both their regular and Standing Committees meetings next Tuesday, June 18th at 10 a.m. and 1:30 p.m. respectively. Speaker registrations will close at 9 a.m. for the regular meeting and 12:30 p.m. for the Standing Committees meeting. To register to speak at these meetings, please fill out the sign-up form on the Council meeting webpage. You may also call the clerk's office at 412-255-2138. Anything from members? Councilwoman Kell-Smith.
Thank you. I'm going to register an abstention on the votes I missed when I wasn't in here. I'm not sure how I'm going to vote on the emergency declaration. I've been going back and forth with Director Pollock and others, and I want to just say I appreciate him taking the time to work with me, but I'm hearing that they're making plans for the Second Avenue's Commons, which is really a function of DHS, but yet it seems like all the work, all the properties that we're taking people in are in the city of Pittsburgh and not spread out across the county. And what I've heard was that they're looking at some place in my district that has been closed because they have black mold. And so I want to have this conversation. So before I vote for something like that, to put people in a building that was not healthy for them, I'm going to make sure that they at least respect council and have some conversations with not just myself, but our county councilman and our state rep, who also have an interest in what happens in our district. And I'll just say that I think that this goes a long way when we're looking at the budget for positions and things that we might be considering reorganizing and redoing. I think we need to have some conversations about the lack of communication that comes on this side of the hall. It's okay to work with the council's leadership. It is not okay to not work with every other member of this body. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else from members? Seeing none, do we have a motion to excuse the absent members, approve the minutes, and adjourn the meeting?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.